Same coding job, same prompt, and your bill from Kimi K3 is 35 times higher than DeepSeek V4 Pro's, while GLM 5.2 can't even tell you what it charges. All three claim to be serious coding models, so the real question is which one actually earns a spot in your stack, and at what cost. Test 1 is cost, and this is where the gap gets genuinely painful. Run a heavy coding agent loop, say 1 million output tokens a month, and you're looking at real money leaving your account fast. The number on screen right now is the one that should make you stop and check your pricing page before you commit to either of these models. I pulled the official pricing pages for both, and here's what I got. Kimi K3 charges $3 per million input tokens and $15 per million output tokens, while DeepSeek V4 Pro is 28 cents input and 42 cents output. What really got me is that Kimi's cash hit price is actually higher than DeepSeek's full cash miss price, so you can't even cash your way out of the gap. GLM 5.2 has nothing I could find anywhere. DeepSeek V4 Pro takes cost, and it's not subtle. 10 times cheaper on input, 35 times cheaper on output, and that puts DeepSeek on the board first. GLM 5.2 can't even get a score here because there's no pricing data at all, which is a problem on its own. I've been deep in these API pricing pages long enough to know that the cash miss trap bites people constantly, so drop a reply if this pricing gap surprised you too. Test 2 is coding benchmarks, and this is the one where price stops mattering for a second. You're shipping a feature, the model keeps failing on a tricky bug, and you're rerunning the same prompt over and over, burning tokens. AWE Bench, Verified, and Aider Polyglot are the two numbers that tell you which model actually solves the problem the first time. On SWE Bench Verified, Kimi K3 hits 71.3%, and DeepSeek V4 Pro lands at 68.9%, a 2.4-point gap, and on Aider Polyglot it's 61.8% versus 58.2%. The margins are real but tight, and community reports suggest Kimi K3 trips up more on complex trap design tasks despite those higher numbers, so treat the benchmark lead as a direction, not a guarantee. GLM 5.2 has 0 published scores. Kimi K3 takes coding benchmarks on both SWE Bench and Aider Polyglot, which puts the score at 1 each, and I didn't expect the gap to be this close given the massive price difference. The lead is narrow enough that real-world results may look different depending on how complex your tasks get. Test 3 is speed, and this one matters more than people give it credit for. One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. You're running an agentic loop, the model is generating a long response, and every extra second of latency is dead time in your workflow. The number to watch here is output tokens per second, because that's the real-world feel of the model when you're actually using it. The Artificial Analysis Independent Benchmark puts DeepSeek V4 Pro at 92 tokens per second and Kimi K3 at 78, an 18% speed advantage for DeepSeek, and this is a third-party measurement, not a vendor claim. Community users have described Kimi K3 as genuinely slow in practice, so this gap compounds with the cost difference in a pretty painful way. GLM 5.2 has no speed data I could find. DeepSeek V4 Pro wins speed 92 versus 78 tokens per second from an independent source, and that moves DeepSeek to 2 wins versus Kimi K3's 1. More tokens, faster for a fraction of the price, and that combination is pretty hard to argue with. Okay, so DeepSeek V4 Pro is cheaper and faster, but there are still 2 tests to go, and one of them is about how much code you can actually feed the model in a single shot. That dimension could completely change which model is right for your specific workflow, so let's get into it. Test 4 is context and output limits, and this is the one where a hard ceiling can wreck your whole session. You're reviewing a massive codebase, maybe 100,000 lines. You paste it in, and the model just cuts off mid-analysis because it ran out of room. The difference in context window size between these models puts them in a completely different category of capability. I checked the official docs, and here's what came back. Kimi K3 supports a full 1 million token context window, 8 times DeepSeek V4 Pro's 128K, and its default output limit is 131K tokens versus DeepSeek's 65K. So it can generate double the response in one pass. For huge codebases or long document review, Kimi K3 is the only one of these two that can even handle the job. GLM 5.2 has no published limits I could find. Kimi K3 takes context and output limits decisively, and that ties the score at 2 wins each, which I honestly didn't see coming given how lopsided the cost and speed tests went. The 1M context is a real, documented advantage, and for the right workload, it's the only thing that matters. Test 5 is deployment and modality, and the failure mode here is sneaky. You pick a model, build your integration, and then find out the weights aren't available yet, or the API doesn't support the access pattern you need, and you're stuck rebuilding. Both Kimi K3 and DeepSeek V4 Pro offer API access and open weights, but the timing on those weights is not the same. Both Kimi K3 and DeepSeek V4 Pro are text-only models with API access and open weights, so on paper they look identical here. The real difference is that DeepSeek V4 Pro's weights are available right now, while Kimi K3's weights weren't released until July 27, 2026. GLM 5.2's deployment options are a complete unknown, which is a real problem if you're trying to evaluate it seriously. The honest caveat here is that both models land in the same category on deployment, API plus open weights, so the gap is really about timing rather than capability. But timing does matter. If you needed self-hosted weights before July 2026, DeepSeek V4 Pro was your only option, and that's a real practical edge for teams who move fast. Deployment is a tie on features, and that holds the final score at Kimi K3 2, DeepSeek V4 Pro 2, GLM 5.20 with 1 tied. The tiebreaker on deployment goes to DeepSeek in practice because its weights were ready first, but on paper both clear the same bar. Kimi K3 wins on coding benchmarks, with 71.3% on SWE bench verified versus DeepSeek's 68.9%, and it wins on context and output limits by a massive margin. 8 times the context window at 1 million tokens and double the default output at 131K tokens. For anyone working with huge codebases or needing very long generated responses in a single pass, Kimi K3 is the only model in this group that can do it. DeepSeek V4 Pro wins on cost and speed, and the cost gap is brutal. 28 cents per million input tokens versus Kimi K3's $3, and 42 cents per million output tokens versus $15. On top of that, it's 18% faster at 92 tokens per second, and its open weights were available immediately, not delayed to July 2026. For everyday coding work, this is the smarter unit economics play. The hard truth is, GLM 5.2 doesn't win anything in this comparison because there's no published pricing, no benchmark scores, no speed data, and no documented context limits anywhere in the official sources. Until GLM 5.2 publishes real numbers, you can't responsibly build on it or even compare it, so it sits this one out completely. If you're working with massive codebases or need very long outputs in one shot, pick Kimi K3 and pay the premium for that 1M context window. For everything else, DeepSeek V4 Pro is the clear call because 35 times cheaper on output is a number that just doesn't go away. GLM 5.2 is a non-starter until it publishes any real data. One thing the docs don't surface clearly: Kimi K3's 1 million token context is real, but the default output cap is 131K, not 1 million. To actually unlock full 1 million token output, you have to explicitly configure it, and you're paying $15 per million output tokens the whole time. That default cap catches people off guard. If you want to see how DeepSeek V4 Pro holds up against a completely different class of model, I ran the same kind of breakdown in Claude Opus 5 versus DeepSeek V4 Flash versus GLM 5.2, and the results there are genuinely interesting because the speed and cost dynamics flip in ways you probably wouldn't expect.